Before we start this video, I want to give out a warning for those that want to go out of their way to read the series for themselves. As seen in the last two videos, the mangaka has not been shy to show loli art in this series. I do not support loli art, however I do want these videos to be an alternative for you guys to still be able to enjoy the story while not having to deal with the perverted panels. Well, thank you guys for understanding, and let's get this video started. We are officially halfway through Magical Girl Apocalypse and have wrapped up everything from Season 1. Now, as we dive into the next 4 volumes and kick off Season 2, the real question is, does this series, which I have been constantly dissing the entire time, actually get any better? Well, let's go ahead and find out and get straight into it. The year is 2030 in Shibuya, Tokyo. Two girls, Tobikiri Ruru and Hanaki Mikano, are heckled by a pair of hooligans, who are quickly arrested for talking to a minor. The girls see an ad on a billboard for a company called Wa Halib, whose CEO is Shirokane Sol. His son, Shirokane Shinobu, is known as an oddball and is told off by an older Kaede who now works at the company. Another employee, Abeno Maria, who Shinobu is in love with, informs him that his father is looking for him. Meanwhile, other employees gossip about Shinobu, but Kaede shuts them down by sharing a rumor. Despite his strange behavior, he's actually a genius responsible for 40% of the company's developed medicine. Shinobu meets with his father, who makes a final request. His mother passed away that afternoon, without any explanation. Sol wants Shinobu to use his power to bring her back. However, Shinobu refuses, arguing that it would be like playing God. In response, Sol shows him a capsule filled with magical girl blood. Elsewhere, Mikano is kidnapped by friends of the arrested hooligan who intends to assault her. However, Mikano quickly takes them down, revealing herself to be a magical girl. Meanwhile, there are cameos of a future Akuda who interrogates the hooligans, and Kaede heading home to a future Kogami. Shinobu walks down the street, weighed down by grief, when Mikano calls out to him, having heard about his mother's death. She follows him to his house, where he recounts the situation. Sol tells Shinobu about an immortal witch and the power hidden in magical girl blood. He needs Shinobu's help to develop a medicine that could bring people back to life. Before leaving, Shinobu lashes out at his father for being so calm, unaware that So is actually deeply in pain. Meanwhile, Akuda visits the abandoned warehouse where Mikano was kidnapped. The hooligans try to tell their story, but no one believes them until Akuda finds evidence that could support their claims. After seeing his mother's body, Shinobu vows to perfect the medicine and heads off. Mikano tries to follow him but accidentally bumps into a mysterious girl who quickly leaves. At the company, a shadowy figure is shown experimenting on a naked woman suspended in a human test tube. The figure receives a notification Shinobu has entered the lab. Determined, Shinobu begins running tests on the blood sample. Meanwhile, Sol goes out to eat and runs into Akuda. Sol asks Akuda to find someone for him. In return, he can do whatever he wants, even if it's illegal. Back in the lab, Shinobu decides to test the blood on himself. The moment he does, he collapses. The next day, Kaede enters the lab and finds him unconscious. When Shinobu regains consciousness, he immediately calls his father, revealing that he now understands what the blood is, as a figure watches from the doorway. Kaede rushes Shinobu to the hospital, forcing Sol to finally explain the truth to her. Meanwhile, at the police station, Akuda has gathered enough evidence to suspect Mikano is the one responsible for the warehouse incident. Back at the company, Kaede warns Sol not to cross the boundaries of humanity. In response, Sol threatens her, telling her that she should prepare for the consequences. At the school, Akuda takes Mikano in for questioning. Mikano insists that she's the victim, but after she calls Akuda a virgin, Akuda blatantly sexually harasses her. Elsewhere, Kaede continues researching Shinobu's experiment. However, the moment she realizes what it is, she's suddenly attacked by the shadowy figure. All while Kogami is waiting at a restaurant preparing to propose to her. Meanwhile, Sol and Sukune's father discuss Shinobu experimenting on himself. Suddenly, they receive an emergency alert. Shinobu has escaped his hospital room. Sol and Sukune's father rush to his room only to find a shattered window. Elsewhere, Shinobu limps through an alley, his body showing signs of unnatural strength. At the same time, Mikano has also escaped the police station, blasting a massive hole in the wall. Kaede wakes up realizing that the sample is gone. The shadowy figure approaches the human test tube and releases the naked woman inside. As the woman cuts her hair, the entire company enters emergency lockdown. Kaede calls Sol, reporting the situation. She also reveals that Shinobu's sample has the ability to control cells, meaning anything from water to animals, even time itself, can be converted into a cell. Sol turns to Sukune's father, realizing that the blood sample may have contained the seed of a demon. In a flashback, it is revealed that Sukune's father was the one who gave Sol the magical girl blood, urging him to create a medicine to save his wife. He also told Sol about the immortal witch and gave him a photograph of her and her husband. Sol later took that photograph to Akuta, hiring him to find the witch. In the present, Akuta visits Mikano's house, speaking with her father. The man claims that he knows nothing about Mikano's alleged crimes and that her mother died suddenly without any explanation. Okuda asks to use the bathroom, but instead he sneaks into Mikano's room. There he commits some more sexual harassment crimes, then searches through her computer. He finds a folder labeled Magical Girls. Back at the company, Kaede and Kogami finally reunite. Meanwhile, Mikano finds Shinobu, his body now mutated from the magical girl blood. The volume ends with the shadowy figure looking at the newly freed woman and naming her Himeji Wataru. Shinobu's body has been mutated by the cells, giving him a completely new appearance and the terrifying ability to decay anything with just a swipe of his finger. His entire body is in excruciating pain, and when Mikano reaches out to touch him, he panics, violently blowing her away before leaping into the sky. Meanwhile, Sol and Sukune's father meet with Kogami and Kaede, explaining the chaotic situation unfolding. Unbeknownst to them, Tono's wife, Maria, is secretly listening in. As Shinobu rampages through the city, he leaves a trail of destruction in his wake, forcing Akuta and the shadowy figure to pursue him. The shadowy figure is ultimately revealed to be the Puppet Master. Shinobu continues his rampage only to be confronted by the Puppet Master and Himeji. The Puppet Master declares that Shinobu must be captured and used as a test subject. He orders Himeji to attack, initiating an all-out battle. At first, Himeji dominates the fight, overwhelming Shinobu with sheer strength. However, Shinobu adapts and counters, turning the tide in his favor. Their battle tears through half the city, culminating in Shinobu blasting a hole straight through Himeji's chest. He then encases Himeji in a spear of magic which sucks in debris from the city. From a distance, Mikano watches in horror. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears beside her, ominously stating that Shinobu has taken a bite from the forbidden fruit, a choice that could bring about the end of the world. Stunned, Mikano turns to the woman and asks, "Mom, is that you?" Meanwhile, Shinobu prepares to deal the final blow to Himeji, triggering a massive explosion that begins devastating the entire city. The woman beside Mikano observes the destruction and mutters, "He has inherited my father's power," before revealing herself as the immortal witch, Mikano's mother. Realizing that Shinobu is dangerously close to fully transforming into a demon, Mikano's mother decides to intervene before he destroys everything. She prepares to leave, but Mikano desperately tries to stop her, knowing that she intends to kill Shinobu. Inside Shinobu's mind, a voice calls out to him, the voice of the witch that lies within him. As his transformation accelerates, Mikano's mother launches an attack, aiming to put an end to him. However, Mikano steps in at the last second, blocking her attack. The two argue, but Shinobu, still consumed by the witch's voice, lashes out, firing two devastating laser beams straight into Mikano's chest. Mikano's mother rushes to heal her daughter's wound, while Shinobu, still possessed by the inner voice, begins preparing another attack. Barely clinging to life, Mikano utters a desperate plea, reminding Shinobu of his mother and the fact that everything that he's done has been to save her. Inside Shinobu's mind, a battle ensues between him and the inner voice. Suddenly, another unknown force intervenes, abruptly halting his transformation and restoring him back to his human form. As the dust settles, the Puppet Master picks up something from the ground, quickly retrieving Himeji's body and vanishes before Mikano's mother could stop him. Mikano's mother takes both Shinobu and Mikano to treat their wounds. At the lab, the Puppet Master reflects on the battle, realizing that it wasn't Shinobu who suppressed the demon's power. It was somebody else. Several months later, Shinobu and Mikano have been branded fugitives. deemed responsible for the destruction of downtown Shibuya. The immense media pressure drives Mikano's father to sue. Meanwhile, Okuda begins preparing to hunt down both Mikano and Shinobu. At the company, 9 female employees have mysteriously resigned. While many assume it's because of the incident, Sol believes there's another reason. He asks Okuda for help in searching for his missing employees, but Okuda declines, mocking him for having a fugitive son. Instead, he shifts his focus to investigating Mikano's magical girl folder. At an elementary school, Sukune, now a teacher, is approached by Tono. Throughout Season 2, Tono and his wife Maria have been piecing together the ancient tomb. Tono confronts Sukune, revealing that he knows she is a magical girl, and asks for help in locating the missing page of the ancient tomb. However, Sukune refuses to give him any information. Before leaving, Tono hands her his business card. Elsewhere, Shinobu is locked in a cell, imprisoned by Mikano's mother. She reveals 2 shocking truths. The man who took his life was not actually Mikano's real father, and if magical girl blood is injected into a male body, it creates the perfect host for a demon resurrection. To prevent this from ever happening, her mother altered her DNA, ensuring that she can never bear a son, doing all of this even as a human. They must locate the unknown force that suppresses Shinobu's transformation, as it may be the key to solving everything. Back at the lab, Maria passes by a fellow employee. However, the moment she turns her back, the employee suddenly attacks her. Later that night, Kogami after work visits a bar, only to spot a familiar face in the corner. However, before he can ask questions, Sukune flees. She then returns home and retrieves an old childhood treasure chest. Meanwhile, Maria regains consciousness, only to find herself naked and strapped to a wall, surrounded by 9 missing female employees. The puppet master reveals himself as none other than Makabe, the same employee who mocked Shinobu at the beginning of Season 2. He reveals that Maria is a magical girl. Not only that, but she is the one who also suppressed Shinobu's transformation. Makabe found her badge at the scene of the battle, confirming her involvement. Himeji, still traumatized from the fight, is deemed useless by Makabe, so he destroys her, realizing that a male body is a superior vessel for magical girl blood. So Makabe creates a male version of Himeji. The volume ends with Sukune opening her childhood treasure chest, revealing the missing piece of the ancient tomb. But before we get to the next part, I just want to say that we now have a Discord server. So if you guys want to talk about your favorite series, get recommendations, and just connect with some like-minded fans of mine, then this is the server for you. We'll soon be hosting live community events like games, live reactions, and live readings only on the Discord server. So if you want to be involved in this, then why not scroll down and join our community? But back to the video. Kogami asks the bartender who the woman was, and he reveals her name to be Sukune, his childhood friend. Kaede is summoned to Sol's office, where he tells her that Maria is missing. No camera footage shows her leaving the building, which means that someone inside the company must have tampered with it. Kaede quickly calls Tono to inform him about Maria's disappearance. Tono mentions that he's been so wrapped up in his research on magical girls that he hasn't actually noticed. Kaede then asks if she can come over to meet him. Meanwhile, Okuda returns from the police station, revealing that he has found the hideout of Shinobu and Mikano. He prepares to infiltrate the base with just his partner, determined to murder both Shinobu and Mikano. At the hideout, Mikano and her mother are planning to stay in hiding, but Shinobu is running out of time. He could easily revert back into his demon form at any moment. In despair, Shinobu demands that they kill him, claiming he can no longer live a normal life and just wants to die. However, Mikano refuses to let him die. Maria wakes up strapped to a table with 3 other employees deconstructed next to her. Makabe, obsessed with obtaining ultimate power, the power of a demon, watches over her. He awakens Himeji, but Himeji immediately collapses to the ground, feeling weak. Makabe lays him down on the table next to Maria and begins to extract him open. Kaede appears at Tono's house and explains that his research is connected to Maria's disappearance. Meanwhile, Himeji is torn open as Maria, despite her weakened state, manages to use her power to free herself from the restraints. She crawls towards a computer and desperately tries to call for help. She manages to contact Kaede, telling her that she's in the basement of the company. However, before Maria can reveal who is behind it all, she is attacked from behind by Makabe. Kaede and Tono immediately head towards the company, while at the same time Okuda and his partner raid the hideout. The company building goes into lockdown and sleeping gas floods the room. Soul's assistant quickly grabs a gas mask and puts it on Soul's face, sacrificing herself. Meanwhile, Makabe proceeds with the final step, transferring the core from Maria to Himeji, completing the experiment. Okuda and his partner explore the hideout and find Shinobu locked up, but before they can do anything, they are taken down by Mikano's mother. Mikano interrogates them about how they discovered the location and why Okuda has a picture of her mother. Okuda reveals that Soul was the one who sent him. In response, Mikano's mother forces Okuda to look into someone for her. Tono and Kaede reach the company building and search for an entrance. When they split up, Kaede is knocked unconscious by the puppet master. Realizing that she's missing, Tono quickly drives to Kogami's place to inform him of the situation. Meanwhile, Makabe has Kaede chained up in a room, while Himeji has fully recovered. However, when Himeji tries to speak, he realizes that he can't say a word or even hear anything. Instead, he takes over the computer and speaks through it. The experiment is complete, and their next objective is to collect the last scrap of the revelations of the apocalypse, the torn page that Sukune possesses. Once they have it, they will eliminate her. Soul wakes up from the gas and stumbles outside. Tono and Kogami arrive at the scene, finding Soul limping out of the building before collapsing. They decide to go inside and search for Kaede, leaving Soul in Tono's car. At the hideout, Shinobu has fully recovered, noting that the demon inside him seems to be sleeping. Meanwhile, Kogami and Tono explore the building, following a trail of blood leading them to a lab filled with human experiments. However, Maria is nowhere to be found. Before they can react, they notice a bomb counting down. Kogami quickly pushes Tono out of the way before it detonates, causing a massive explosion. News reporters covering the incident hear the explosion from the outside, prompting Mikano to prepare to teleport herself, Shinobu, her mother, and Okuda outside the building. Elsewhere, the puppet master and Himeji move their experiments to a secondary lab, where Maria and Kaede are being held. Makabe tells Himeji about the ritual, but Himeji asks what Makabe plans to do once the ritual is complete. Makabe avoids answering and instead says that they need the torn page of the ancient tomb, Revelations of the Apocalypse. As the group is teleported outside the building, Shinobu finds his father in the car, only to realize that he has died from the gas. 2 months have passed since the incident. Tono and Kogami survived, with their wounds mysteriously healed, likely thanks to Sukune. Sukune has been avoiding Kogami, not wanting to risk having a child with him. Tono explains the revelations of the apocalypse and reveals that the person or entity who wrote them are not human. As Kogami leaves, he is suddenly attacked by a shadowy figure. Back at the hideout, Mikano and Shinobu speak with Mikano's mother. She reveals that the demon source could be removed from Shinobu's blood. Okuda arrives with the information Mikano's mother requested, records of Soul's movement over the past few months. According to the records, Soul had a secret meeting with somebody. At Sukune's house, the puppet master and Himeji appear, holding Kogami hostage. They demand that Sukune hand over the revelations of the apocalypse, accusing her of stealing it from her fellow exorcists. Sukune hands them over, but before the puppet master can react, Himeji suddenly slices him in half, killing him. Sukune immediately charges in and rescues Kogami. Meanwhile, Shinobu and Mikano visit Sukune's father and discuss how he was the one who gave them the magical girl blood. He reveals that he obtained it from his wife. When they ask if he knew the blood contained the demon's source, he insists that he did not. Before leaving, Shinobu asks Sukune's father if his mother was a magical girl, and Sukune's father confirms it. At the hideout, Mikano's mother strengthens security. Suddenly, she senses something approaching them. Okuda hears screaming and decides to hide. Himeji enters the lab and has the conversation with Mikano's mother that was referenced in Volume 6. He demands to know the location of the Altar of Time. Mikano's mother claims that she actually doesn't know, but Himeji suggests that Mikano might. After all, she is the daughter of the only witch in existence, the living daughter of Muruku Eris. Mikano is not part of the 13 descendants, as she is not from the same bloodline. Eris agrees to reveal the altar's location only after Himeji has gathered all the descendants. He succeeds in doing so, and then reveals a shocking truth. Maria is the puppet master that we have been observing in the parallel world. We see Himeji orchestrating the plan, telling Maria that if the Asuka plan fails, they will activate the Magical Girl Apocalypse project. Later, Tono is visited by a masked figure, who reveals herself to be Kaede. She hands him a note explaining how she was attacked and how Makabe tried to brainwash her, but it didn't work. She plans to infiltrate their ranks, pretending to be on their side, while secretly remaining loyal to her true allies. She begs Tono not to tell Kogami that she's alive, fearing that he would come after her and ruin the plan. Before leaving, she gives Tono a sample of Magical Girl blood and a piece of Himeji's time machine, hoping that he could create an alternative time machine Magical Girl. Meanwhile, Kaede reunites with her sister and recruits her for the mission. We then see Himeji in the year 2012, secretly stalking Kogami with a video camera. Maria reports that there hasn't been any change, so Himeji then activates the Magical Girl Apocalypse project, leading to the events from volumes 1 through 5. The volume ends in the present, at the conclusion of volume 8, with Kogami teleporting through time, signaling the official start of the final season. The final season begins with the first chapter of the series, but this time from Himeji's point of view. However, when the alternative bursts through the classroom window, Kaede is there to stop it. Himeji is furious, but before he can react, he is cut down by Mew and launched out of the classroom by Parasite. Himeji manages to escape but is completely unaware of what is happening or who Mew and Parasite are. Realizing that he is at a disadvantage, he decides that he will allow himself to die just this once. Meanwhile, the Kogami of this world is confronted by his future self from the parallel world. The future Kogami explains that he was sent by a friend and that he needs his help, as he is now their last line of defense. Mew further explains the situation to Kogami while Parasite chases after Himeji. The evil alternatives rampaging through the schoolyard are taken down by the future alternatives. Himeji attempts to contact Maria only to see her sliced in half on the computer screen. The entire school is thrown into chaos as Sukune frantically tries to make sense of the situation. Kaede coldly tells her that she should just go back to sleep, addressing her as Asuka, before Mew knocks her unconscious. After the parallel world's Himeji travels back to the past, Kogami tended to everyone's wounds. Future Kogami explains that Tono saved Kaede and her sister when the world was being destroyed. He traveled back to the future and informed Kogami of everything, preparing him as the final line of defense in case things went wrong. With this preparation, Kogami was able to analyze Himeji and his abilities. He's returned to the past using the alternative time machine girl, and their mission is clear. They will use Tono's time machine to travel back to the start of the apocalypse, where Himeji will be at his most vulnerable. Their objective is not to only kill Himeji, but also to protect their past selves from dying. The alternative, Liv, is assigned to protect the past versions of Kaede and Miki, while Akuda, who has been infused with Parasite's DNA, is tasked with protecting Yuruka. Mew and Kaede, followed by Sukune, Kogami's friends, their teacher, and Inui, regroup with both versions of Kogami. Future Kogami briefs them on the situation as Akuda eliminates the zombified students. An alternative and Tono move ahead to pick up past Akuda, while future Ren and Yuruka retrieve Sukune's parents from the past. Sukune's parents from the future pick up past Ren and Miyu. Trust me, this just gets even more confusing later on. In the backseats of Tono's car, teenage versions of Sol and Maria are confused by everything that's happening. But Tono reassures them, vowing to protect them since he failed to do so in the future. Himeji is cornered in an alley by Lolo, Coco, and Parasite, who engage him in battle. They appear to have the upper hand until Himeji activates the Kaiju alternative, allowing him to escape. Far away in a military helicopter, Ashiya and Natsukawa prepare to fight off the alternatives. Future Kogami's group regroups on the school's roof, where the past versions of themselves refuse to believe his story. However, future Kogami insists that this is their new reality. Akuda arrives with Yuruka and her friend, while Parasite reports that Himeji had slipped away and is likely heading towards the wormhole to return to the future. Tono and his group fend off several evil alternatives, trying to save as many civilians as possible. A snake-like alternative attacks their vehicle, forcing Tono into battle. At the mall, past Ren comes to terms with the situation. With help from future Sukune's mother, he reunites past Miyu with her mother while vowing to protect them. At the hospital, future Ren and Yuruka talk. Ren assures her that once they stop the apocalypse, they should find happiness together. Parasite, Lolo, and Coco reunite with future Kogami's group. Future Kogami declares that they must reach the wormhole before Himeji does and return to the future, where they will lie in wait and kill him. Their plan is to use both confusion and the military helicopter to pass through the wormhole. Kaede comes up with a plan involving Ashiya and Natsukawa, knowing where they will be landing. However, before they can proceed, they must first regroup with Tono's team by taking the school bus. Suddenly, an alternative appears and attempts to wipe them out, but future Kogami swiftly eliminates it. The group boards the bus, but future Kogami warns Kaede about spending too much time with her past self, as it could negatively affect her personal timeline. On the bus, Akuda begins vomiting blood. Parasite explains that fusing her DNA with his was only a temporary solution. His time is slowly running out. Meanwhile, Tono and his group witness Himeji hopping from alternative to alternative, rapidly making his way towards the wormhole. Just then, Kaede and her sister begin falling from the wormhole. Himeji doesn't understand what is happening, but he ignores them and continues towards his goal. Tono screams for Kaede to stop Himeji. The volume ends with Kaede returning to her sister, Wataru, and commanding her to stop Himeji, just as Himeji realizes that Wataru has the same last name as him. Season 2 and the beginning of Season 3 are indeed my favorite part about the series. Season 2 was a cool vision into the future, which is also considered the flashback arc in a way. Like I said, it's very confusing from here on out. The time traveling aspect has grown on me a little bit. Not that it's not confusing or entertaining, but I was just more upset that it just came out of nowhere in the beginning. Season 2 doesn't really dabble into much of the time travel aspect until like the ending, which made the story of Season 2 a little bit more digestible, makes it easier to follow. I like the new characters that were introduced, and I didn't mention this in the last video, but I was kind of upset that the Immortal Witch, now known as Eris, wasn't really utilized and only shown for like one chapter. Now though, with the focus on Sol, Shinobu, Mikano, Eris, it gives us a new perspective and opens up the world building and lore a whole lot more. I like seeing those extra POVs of different situations happening. Plus, the different cameos of old characters were a treat. I really liked seeing a parallel world where the Magical Girl Apocalypse project didn't go through, and now we see all of the characters that we see struggle throughout the series all grown up. I don't have many complaints about Season 2. There are a couple things I didn't like. First off, the fact that they have Shinobu's mom as a magical girl, except the magical girls can't give birth to males. Also, that they have a symbol on their forehead now that we've never seen before. Neither Sukune, her mother, or even Eddie's and Mikano have these symbols, so like why even bring it up? Second of all, I don't like the death of Sol. I don't mind that it happened. I just think that dying from sleeping gas is kind of weird, especially with how bloody his body was. Also, I know that injecting too much sleeping gas or like anesthesia could just cause brain damage and death, but I feel like Himeji or maybe Makabe killing him would be a whole lot better than just sleeping gas. Also, the comments I've seen about Akuda saying that in an apocalyptic setting, people tend to do really crazy things, so it's realistic in a sense. First off, I agree, that could happen. It's happened in a bunch of other stories as well. However, that argument doesn't really work with Akuda because, well, we've already seen him preying on underage girls as a cop with his buddies before the apocalypse happened in 2012. But now in Season 2 in 2030, we've seen him commit multiple sexual harassment crimes in a world where magical girls weren't even public knowledge. So I think that argument doesn't apply in the situation of Akuda. Also, let's just stop with the blacked out penis shots. Like, just do a black bar or like a cloud instead of actually showing the shape of the penis and balls of teenagers. But now this leads to Season 3, which with Volume 12 seeming to be like the Infinity War Part 1 of Magical Girl Apocalypse. We get cameos, we get certain groups appearing and splitting off for the finale to be this endgame sort of ending, which I'm 110% for. The final season seems to be going in a direction that I could get on board with. I don't know how they're going to include the people from season 2 into the mix, but I'm really excited to see how they are gonna do it, and it is already teased in the after credit scene of the volume. So I also don't know what they're gonna do with the can't spend too much time together with your past self route, just because we know both Kogamis are together literally all the time. But that could be an interesting plot device with the ending when it comes around. One last negative note regarding Akuda. I've seen a lot of comments of people saying that the mangaka isn't trying to make us like Akuda. Akuda is doing bad things because he just wants to be bad, which is understandable. You can have characters just be completely evil or just complete criminals throughout the whole story and make them like a villain to an extent, having them become another obstacle in their plans. That's what I thought was going to happen at like the hospital or in the New World. I feel like those were explored but just not enough, not into detail, and it was very cut short because literally right after the New World and he tries to do his little side quest thing, he just became like a follower. I won't take back any of my statements. I do believe Akuda is a self-insert from the mangaka, and I also believe that the mangaka wants us to start liking him by giving him a lot of moments like uncovering Himeji's identity, saving Miu, saving Yuruka. The mangaka wants to give him so many big wins. Why not give those big wins to characters that are actually good guys like Koagami, Ren, or Yuruka? It would have elevated those characters and make them more likable while playing in that extra obstacle route for Akuda. Akuda has just never been accountable for any of his crimes. Yes, he's suffered a lot, but he's never felt bad for any of the stuff that he has done. And now with the beginning of the finale, it looks like that he's going that redemption route. Like, come on, we're not gonna like a redemption story from someone who has tried to sexually assault an 8-year-old girl and multiple high schoolers. But that's my Akuda rant. But everything else was really good. The fight scenes were amazing, specifically Femme Himeji versus Shinobu's demon form. The world building of 2023 is great, and the background lore of Eris, Exorcist, and the Puppet Master with the whole company, it's all really entertaining and interesting. Definitely the finale might make me rethink this entire series a little bit more, but we'll just have to see what happens next Friday with the finale of Magical Girl Apocalypse. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to join our Discord server. The link will be in the description below. If you like horror manga videos like this one, then why not scroll down and hit that subscribe button. But I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.